Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make some chicken pot pies with some cheddar bay biscuits on them, and we're going to whip up some tortillas or dough for tortillas for later for dinner tonight. So let's start by prepping up the base for our chicken pot pies. I have our onion right here, so we're going to do a nice kind of small dice on our onion, just a half of a yellow onion. And then we'll let it start to caramelize in our pan while we prep our other vegetables. Let me grab my oil. We're going to put in about, I want to say, a tablespoon of olive oil in here. I'm going to turn my skillet to a 7. We'll add in our onions, and we'll let them start to kind of caramelize and saute up. There we go. This is again going to be the base for our kind of chicken pot pies. Well, biscuit pot pies, I guess, if you want to call them. I've got some celery here, so let me take off the ends of both sides since those have always like dried out and they're not quite as good. And then I'm going to slice right down the middle. That way we don't have any mega pieces of celery, just more smaller bits. That one's small enough as it is. And we'll give these a nice little chop. Because, with the chicken pot pie, you want all of the flavors to kind of meld together. You don't want to have any huge pieces of any vegetables. Plus, I do want these to tenderize up fairly quickly. So if you give them a nice kind of smaller dice, you should be able to achieve that. There we go. Throw these little celery bits away. And I'm going to get a spatula to give my onions a little stir here. Get them all coated in the olive oil. And that way they can caramelize up nicely. Okay, so we've got our onions tossed now. I've got 3 carrots here. We're going to give them a quick peel, and then we're going to cut them in half lengthwise and then dice them up. So you want to peel off that skin because it won't be as nice. Kind of has more of an earthy flavor and not as great texture. So always give that a good peel so you have just that nice clean flesh of the carrot. This is a really long and skinny carrot. There we go. And you could always use baby carrots that have already been peeled and washed if you wanted to. But you'll want to dice them up. Those are a little big for this meal today. Here we go. And now I'm going to cut the tops and bottoms off of each one. I'm going to cut my really long one in half because it is super long. And we're going to cut these off. And this is going to be the base for kind of our vegetable base for our chicken pot pies. But we're going to be doing biscuits instead of a pie crust. So it's like a Dutch oven biscuit chicken thing. I got these cute little mini Dutch ovens that we're going to be putting them in. So they'll be little personal, like kind of pot pies almost with a nice biscuit topping. Okay, I'm going to slice up my onions nice and thin because I want them to cook up tenderly. My thicker ones, I'm going to cut them in half. That way they're just not too big. Cut those down because I'm just kind of aiming for all of my pieces to be roughly, that big, not too big. That way they'll cook up quickly because carrots are a harder vegetable, a root vegetable, so they need a bit longer to cook to be tender. And we want to have this meal done hopefully in like a 30 minutes or so. So we'll get these chopped. There we go. Just going to take some of these bigger pieces and then cut them one more time. Now we have our celery and our carrots ready. Give our onions a little stir. Before we add in our celery and our carrots, we're going to add in some garlic. We're going to use just about a teaspoon of garlic here. Give it a little, there we go. Give it a nice stir and we'll let it crisp up just a little bit. Bring out the flavors. Pop that back in there. Gives a nice, very aromatic smell. Okay. All of these onions are hopping out today. Okay. Now let's add in our celery and our carrots. There we go. And we're going to let them kind of give them a good stir and let them get a nice little saute on them.
You have a question? How can someone get the recipe for this?
So we upload all of our videos to the link on the page. That way, if you just wanted to recook it, you could just watch it again and cook along with me a second time. That's kind of the quickest way for you to get it. I do occasionally send out recipe cards, but again, that is extra work for me to do. So this is just kind of what I'm cooking for my family. So the easiest way would probably just to rewatch it. Okay, we've got our onions, our celery, and our carrots in there. We're going to slice up some mushrooms and prep some fresh herbs. Get all of my little carrot strings here. So I've got 4 big kind of baby bella mushrooms that we'll kind of slice up for it. I'm going to do a nice little thin slice on them. There we go. And I will say these 4 will yield plenty of mushrooms for our kind of 4 personal, chicken pot pies. There we go. And we're going to be using some fresh thyme and fresh oregano in our base. We're going to make a roux in a little bit, but we're going to season up our vegetables with these herbs first. So I'm going to take a couple good sprigs of thyme and 1 good little stick of oregano. And unfortunately, the really only best way is to just kind of slide your fingers on and pull those leaves off. You don't want to have the stalk in it. That doesn't have the good flavor, and it will have a really chewy texture. So we've got that off. Take these little leaves off for this one for an oregano. You can always use dry herbs if you want. I'm going to have about a teaspoon of fresh herbs minced up. With dry herbs, you'd probably want to use about a half a teaspoon. So dry herbs are a bit more potent as far as in like using measurement wise for it.
Yeah, but do you prefer fresh oregano or dry?
You know what? I love it both ways. Fresh when I can have it, but honestly, that's not a reality all the time. But I love dried oregano too. And some foods lend itself better with dry herbs. Like if I'm going to do a seasoned fish or chicken, dry herbs I think are better for that because they'll crisp up nicely in the pan versus fresh herbs. So, I mean, I think fresh herbs are just lovely, but you don't always have them. And then sometimes they're a bit extra work to get them prepped. There we go. So get all these, especially like the thyme here, it has really tiny leaves, and I do have to try to like pull them off as best as I can to get those little stalks out. So they're not as, it's easier to just dump out a teaspoon of nice, dry herbs. Lost a little one. Okay. Gonna add in my mushrooms now. Got a nice little thing. I'm gonna turn mine down to about a 5. We'll get a nice little saute on them. Throw our mushrooms in. I'm gonna give it a good stir. And we'll let those kind of cook up, and then we'll get our fresh herbs in there. And then our chicken, and then we'll start making our roux base. I should have used my saucepan with a little lip on it. Okay, we're gonna mince up our oregano and our thyme. And I'm gonna try to mince this up as finely as possible. That way the herbs kind of really blend in with our kind of the gravy sauce that we're gonna make versus it, being a big leaf. We'll go over it several times, just forcefully pushing down with our knife. There we go. That should be good. Okay. I'm going to take it and we're going to add it in here. Get all of our fresh herbs in there. Let them kind of heat up with our mushrooms and our veggies. There we go. And then we're going to get our chicken. We're going to give a quick little chop up on our shredded chicken for our meat base. So I just have, I always buy the rotisserie chicken from Costco in the big packs, and I use it throughout the week, and got enough left over for a good thing. Now you can always cook up your chicken. I will say chicken thighs are great for like pot pies. They just hold together well, but I like to make things easy, get it done quick.
Did you have a question? Did everyone enjoy the chicken wings last night?
Oh, they did. They loved them. Everyone, I came over and I saw my 13-year-old son's plate and he had 15 of them. I was like, oh my gosh, where did they go? He had a little graveyard of bones everywhere. But yes. Now I will say everybody has their favorite. So my daughter said she liked the La Brea tar pit wings better. My husband said he liked those better as well. But Torrin said he liked these ones. So it's always, you never know with the kids. We're going to stir in our chicken here. Let it get flavored up in those herbs. Okay. And then you just use a little bit of garlic salt, kind of season them. Don't need much because we're going to be making a roux in a little bit with some chicken broth and flour and butter. But I do like to have just a little bit of seasoning on my my chicken and vegetables in here.
You got a question? What type of mushrooms?
Those were baby bellas. So just they were pretty big size baby bellas, but that's what they were. I feel like baby bellas or white button mushrooms would be great in this. I'm gonna do a sprinkle of pepper, probably about half a teaspoon. Give it a nice. There we go. Losing them again. Okay. Now I'm going to got my burner turned off, and we're going to scoop these into my 4 mini Dutch ovens, and then we'll make a roux in this pan. Let me see if I have my little shovel one. Works so much better for scooping. And we'll fill them up. Then we'll make a roux, which is to make the base of our kind of gravy that we'll pour over it. And then we're going to make some biscuits to put right on top. But it'll be a nice, delicious, kind of juicy gravy pot pie filling with some crispy biscuits on the top. Okay. Fill this last one up. There. And I will say, I said it is kind of redundant to do them in the little ones, but it is just so cute. I have to justify these. I made little sourdoughs in these the other day, and they were just so adorable.
I have a question. Have you ever tried this, but instead use cheddar bay biscuits?
We are actually using cheddar bay biscuits. I'm not making homemade biscuits today. I said this was enough work as is. I don't want it to be a super long meal. I like to keep my lunches 30 minutes or right on that time. But yes, cheddar bay biscuits, delicious. I will say that is the one box food that I will definitely buy because you just can't. I've made cheddar biscuits before, but they're just not nearly as good as the Red Lobster ones. Just love them. Okay, we're gonna get our roux going, and then we'll start making our biscuits as well. So I'm gonna put in about 2 tablespoons of butter, and I actually don't have my burner on, so it's just gonna melt from the residual heat, and then we'll turn it on. I'm gonna use 2 boxes of biscuits because we're gonna put some on the top, and I will say the biscuits cover less than you think. And then if I have any extra, we'll just bake them up as some individual biscuits. And I will say, I make these almost about as the package says, except I do add more cheese and I use less butter because they want you to brush the tops of them with a lot of butter, and you need half as much. So I don't waste nearly as much butter as they have on there. We're gonna put out our 2 packages of the biscuit mix, which is really just like flour, baking soda, salt, probably baking powder too. Okay, and then we're gonna add 1.5 cups of cold water. And then we're gonna add in, I use a bit more cheese. I'm gonna use a big handful, another one. So they call for like, I guess the 2 boxes would be a cup of cheese. I probably use like a cup and a half because it just makes them taste better, I think. Okay, we're gonna give them a nice stir to combine them. Super simple. These aren't hard to make at all. Very easy. And then when they're mixed up, after I make the roux, we'll put these on the top of our biscuit, like on top of the little mini Dutch ovens. We have the mix, and I do have my oven preheated to 425. Okay, let's make our roux. I'm going to turn my burner on now, and my butter is almost melted here. There we go. Let's grab some flour, have that ready. And then I do have, we're going to use, I don't need quite that much. So about 2 cups of water, and then I'm going to use some chicken bouillon. So it's like chicken broth. I think it gives a bit more flavor than just straight up chicken broth. I'm going to mix it together, and we're going to use that as the liquid base for our roux with just a dash of cream. Okay, so I'm going to add in about 2 tablespoons of flour here. That's like 1 tablespoon of flour kind of per butter, or tablespoon of butter, so you kind of equal parts there. You're going to make this nice kind of little paste, and just make sure you're always using your whisk to move it around so you don't burn it, and just stir.
You have a question. How do you like your oven being part of the island?
I absolutely love it. That was actually kind of my design for doing it. And I thought about putting in gas, but it wasn't feasible. They said I could do gas if I put my oven behind me, but I really like it right here because my TV's in my living room right there. So I can watch TV while I cook a lot of times. And I just really like it. It makes me feel like I'm a part of everybody. Before we did our renovation, our house was like a 1979 house with a 1979 kitchen that was closed off. And I felt like I was always by myself while everybody was in the family room. So I really like it because it keeps me in the whole action of everything. So, but yes, it's like just, I love it. I feel like I'm part of everything. And if I have, 2 young kids, they're napping right now, but I can see like their playroom. I can see everywhere from here. So it's a good way to keep kind of eyes on them, which is always nice because they are very mischievous. And always, I will say, Jack, my youngest, he's a very naughty one, very mischievous, very smart, but oh, he likes to do everything he knows he can't do. Okay, we're gonna whip this up and add just a splash of cream to this, give it a nice kind of a creamy base to it, and then we'll pour it over our meat that we have prepared, and then we'll put our biscuit layer on top and pop these in the oven to bake. There we go. So now it's thickening up lovely. So we added our liquid in, and then there we go. Okay, perfect. We have it nice and thick. You don't want to have a too runny of a gravy here. And the spice packets that come with the biscuits, you do that after you bake it. You melt the butter and the spices and you brush them over the top. So that doesn't happen before, it happens after. So in case people who have never made them before. And I will say they're delicious. Turn it off. And we're going to just drizzle this over each one of ours. And you could always throw everything right back in and mix it together and then scoop it out. But this just saves me an extra dish. You know what I mean? There we go. I'm going to get a little bit more now. Got my pan. But this will be just delicious. And as it heats up in the oven, that kind of gravy will melt around all of the chicken pot pie filling. And I will say one word to the wise, if you're doing mini ones like this, do not overfill them with the pot pie mixture, because if you fill it too high, they'll bubble over and then you'll have a huge mess. So we have right this, and now we're going to take our biscuit mix and we're going to kind of drop it on the top. Kind of a nice, you don't want to do it super thick because then it won't cook up as well. So kind of a nice thin layer, but cover the whole thing.
You have a question. Do you know how big those mini Dutch ovens are?
I want to say they look like they're about 2 cups. I don't know what the exact ounce wise is, but I'll have to measure later, but I would say they're 2 cups. So they're perfect. Like I will say for most normal people, it's a perfect single serving size. Now, I did make this once for my stepdad, and I don't think he realized one was a thing. So he ate 2 of them as like a meal, and he was like, they were delicious. Yeah, and I was like, oh, you finished them already? So, but he eats a lot.
Where did you get them?
They are actually part of the Joanna Gaines collection at Target, like their Hearth and Hand. I got them in 2 separate times. So I got them 2 years ago. I got 4, and then I picked up 4 more this fall. So they still had them. And they were really cheap. I mean, they're cast iron and they're heavy, but they were only $9.99 a piece, which I had to buy 8 because, of course, we're a family. I have 7, and then when my parents are over here, so Teddy and Jack will share one. But I always make sure I have enough for everyone in my family, like my immediate family, so we can do cute little things. I've done mini apple pies in them too, little apple crisps. They were delicious. Okay, so we've got these. We can make a few biscuits, and then we're going to pop everything in the oven. And this will just be extra biscuits because these are delicious. There we go. And you don't need to shape these or anything like that. Think of them as like a drop biscuit. If you ever made like Biscuit going up, the Biscuit biscuits, these are kind of just like that. Okay. I think I have enough for one more, and then we're going to get these in the oven. Okay. There we go.
You have a question. Do you know what you're making yet for dinner?
Yes. We kind of had a brainstorming session. I said, I got to use up some ground beef. So we're going to do homemade tortillas, which we're going to make the dough for that in just a second. And then we're going to make beef tacos. So good old school, like 90s beef tacos. Okay, let's get these guys. We're going to go put them in the oven. I feel like I'm juggling here. Pretty talented until I drop them all. Okay, so my oven is preheated to 425. So I'm going to put these all right here. And then I'm going to go grab my mini biscuits. We'll put those on the bottom layer and pop those in. And I'm going to set my timer for 14 minutes. And they should all be done. These biscuits take about 14 to 15 minutes, but they should be ready I'll do 14 and we'll see if they need any more, but we'll let those bake up while now we can prep our sourdough dough for later. I've got a cantaloupe that I need to cut up for lunch as well. And yeah, let's see. Let me just clean up this area a little bit. We'll start our butter for our biscuits in just a second too. I'll flip this over. Look at all my little herb stems here. Okay, let me give my knife a quick wash so we can use it for cantaloupe.
Someone looked up the mini Dutch oven. They're 1 3/4 cup.
Ah, okay. Yeah, so I said they pretty close then. I felt like, I'm pretty close. It was off by like 2 ounces. I think that is pretty good. That's why I always say, like, visually, I was like, I've never actually measured them, but they are, I feel like, a good, perfect serving size. Especially when I did the apple crisps in them. We shared them, but I made apple crisp and they were just delicious. Okay. Before we cut up our cantaloupe, we're going to do our sourdough tortillas because I like to do a couple knead sessions in them. So we're going to start out with a cup of sourdough discard. Give it a nice stir. I fed it up yesterday, so we should have plenty in here. Okay, so we want 1 whole cup. So this is a great recipe if you need to use a lot of discard. Most discard recipes have just use between a third and a half a cup. But whenever I find a good recipe that uses a good amount, that's always like a good win. So we've got a 1 whole cup of sourdough starter or discard. And then we're going to add in a half a cup of oil because tortillas have actually a lot of oil in it. They have a higher kind of fat content, but you don't need oil when you like cook them up. So we've got a half a cup of oil, and I'm using olive oil. There we go. And then we're going to use 2/3 cup of water. I'm just going to grab some water right over here. I will say I love the measuring cups that have the lines inside, so you can just use 1 measuring cup for, cooking.
Victoria just sent you some gifts.
Well, thank you, Victoria. We appreciate that.
And then you have a question. Do you have a good recipe for a meatloaf?
I've made meatloaf a couple of times. I love meatloaf. My husband loves meatloaf, but my kids are not a huge fan of it. I think it's delicious. I'll have to do it sometimes, like a video for it. I know we've had a couple requests for it. I feel like my kids just think meatloaf's bad because every time I make it, they eat it. But my 13-year-old, he loves to be like, oh, I don't like it. But then I'm like, you just ate the whole thing. I think they have opinions about things they don't even know. We're giving this a good mix. And then we're going to add in our flour. But I'm going to start with 2 teaspoons of salt. All right, got a little tickle. Okay, so 1 and 2. Give it a good stir. And then this is going to use 3 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour. So these are going to be flour tortillas, which I love flour tortillas. And I will say, I need to get into making fresh corn tortillas. I've made them a couple of times before, but fresh corn tortillas are amazing. I just don't like the store-bought corn tortillas because they're so dry that they fall apart instantly. Versus the flour ones are much more malleable because of the gluten. This is our 3rd cup, and then we're going to add in a 1/3 more. Here we go. And then we're going to mix it together. We do a couple of kneads, and then we'll divide it up. But first, I like to knead it some in the beginning, let it hydrate for a few minutes, and then knead some more. Now, we're not really expecting much of a rising out of this. I will say with the sourdough discard, it does puff up just a teeny bit after a couple hours of rising, but it's not a huge thing. Okay, so we've got a nice little dry shag here. And then I'm going to flip this out onto our counter and we're going to knead it into a lovely kind of ball. So don't think you've done anything wrong if you make this and you start out with a dry shag. This is the way it's supposed to be. It is a high fat content one. So as you knead, that will really kind of work itself together. There you go.
Question. How many recipes do you have featuring sourdough discard?
Oh, hundreds, I would say. Sourdough, I use anything. I've made pretty much everything under the sun with sourdough discard. Pizza, crust, focaccia, pasta, baked goods galore. You can pretty much use sourdough discard in like any recipe. You just have to substitute it out, some of the flour in the water, and you can use it in it. And it's just a great way to not throw sourdough discard away, but also it has a lot of the natural health benefits of sourdough in it. The kind of the fermented flour gives you those good like probiotics and the cultures that are gut healthy. So I love it. And I do love the kind of slightly tart taste that adds. Now, depending when you mix your flour in, you'll have a stronger tart. So if your starter or your discard's like a day or two old before feeding, it's going to have a stronger flavor versus if you've just fed it. So I'm always like cognizant based on like some things like pancakes. I always try to use a starter that's been fed recently so it's not as tart, because that really flavor shows up a lot in pancakes. Okay, we got these coming together. Lovely. And then what we're going to do, got it kneaded. I'm going to roll it into a big ball and we're going to let it hydrate. And so that simply means that the water that we added in there soaks into the flour and it makes it a more malleable dough. So it will make it more soft, more, I guess, together, less dry. Okay. So we'll let it sit here for just a few minutes. And while we're doing that, we're going to cut up our cantaloupe. Here we go. Whoop. So I was going to cut them up both last night, but we ran out of time. So we're just going to cut the other one up today. Oh, there's a small seed pocket in there, which is nice. That means you get more fruit. Sometimes you open up a cantaloupe and the seed pocket is like huge. So you have just a small layer. This one isn't bad. Okay, so let me scoop these out. So you can't eat cantaloupe seeds, or at least they don't taste good. I mean, I'm sure they're probably edible, but they're not good. They don't taste good. They're not like a pumpkin seed. There we go. I don't know if they have arsenic in it. I remember when I was like in high school, I learned that like apple seeds and whatnot had arsenic in it, and it always surprised me how or cyanide in it, not arsenic, but cyanide in it. And it always surprised me. I'm like, oh, how did they figure that out? Who thought to test those? Okay, so we're just gonna slice down, and that way we'll make it easier for when we do cut them up. I will say, but cutting your own fruit up, if you're trying to stay budget friendly, is just really, it saves you a lot of money and you can still enjoy a lot of the fresh produce. So I always like to cut it into slices. And then then like this, when I lay it flat on here, I can just take my knife and slide it right underneath. And that way I don't have to curve my blade along the rind, and it comes off really easily. And it's just a great way to kind of cut up your cantaloupe. And it works well with cantaloupe and honeydew and melons and hammy melons, Creshaw melons. Those all work well with. Watermelon, it doesn't because the rind is thicker, but it allows you to cut them up quickly. And I find it saves me at least 100% of cost wise, because you can buy a cantaloupe for, sometimes they're as cheap as like $2.50, so $2 to $3, or I guess $3 to $4 based on it. versus if you buy it cut up, it's like $10 for less. So it's just a good way to save things. And we are a large family, so we eat a lot of melon as well. But if you cut up at home, if you're smaller, if you cut your melon in half, keep the seeds in one half, wrap that half up with like press and seal or saran wrap, and then just cut up the other half. The ones that still have the seeds in it and covered will last about a week before you need to cut it up again. So it stays fresh longer that way. So if you are a smaller one, you can get a melon and it will last longer than if you try to cut it up all at one time. Because if you cut it up all at one time, but you don't eat it within, a week, it will get slimy. But if you do that, same with watermelon, all the melons, it will actually help it last a lot longer. There we go. Get this nice little slice down. Easy peasy. See, it'll probably take me less than 5 minutes to cut this whole melon up. And if you think about it, I just got paid $5 for doing that because I didn't spend it at the store. And I will say with my kids and things, if I don't cut up the fruit, they don't eat it. So I'm always every day prepping fresh fruit so that it gets eaten. We do serve it at our meals. I pack it in their lunches for school, and then I serve fresh fruit at dinner time, which is not common. I've heard people always think it's strange to serve fresh fruit at dinner. That's just a great way to get it in.
For those thinking about starting a sourdough starter, you want to go over your chocolate plan?
Yes, I'm actually planning to start a chocolate sourdough because I have a couple of chocolate things. I have it, I ordered, I got my raw cocoa powder, and we're going to do that with it. It's a really fun journey. And I love doing it. The benefits are great. I mean, this sourdough starter that I've been using right now has been with me since January. I forgot to put it in the fridge when we left on our vacation in December. We were gone for like over 10 days and it molded in our house while we were gone. So I restarted it, but it has been going strong since then. So it's like a week of work in the beginning, and then I can make amazing recipes from it, and it's been a fun journey. It's fabulous. It's delicious. And so healthy for you. And I feel like I've replaced a lot of like my, store-bought things with it. So it's just absolutely, it's fun. And we're going to be doing it with the cocoa one. I'm going to be starting that so I can do some new recipes for it. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I think you should definitely do it. I do have videos uploaded on there, and I have a recipe on the page, a recipe card on our regular page that shows you how to start your starter, and some funny videos. You want to make sure you use a big enough jar and you discard enough when you do it. But it takes just about a week to get it ready. Sometimes it might take a little bit longer if your house is not like colder. If you keep it below 72 degrees, it does take a couple days longer to get it to the right fermentation process. It's crazy to think like your house being just a little bit colder or a little bit warmer can affect it, but it does because it is temperature sensitive. Okay, those are going to be done in just 30 seconds. So I was going to need that, but we can head over there because it's just about to beep for our pot pies. I will say one day I made bread up and somebody had turned off the heat. Oh, look how beautiful these are. And so when I woke up, my house was like 60 degrees, freezing cold. And I had my starter out. I used it to make bread. It took us like a whole day to figure out that it was too cold. And let me grab these. There we go. And it like made my sourdough not rise. Okay. And our biscuits, our little spares. Okay. While our butter is melting for our it's an herby butter that you put over it. That's what gives it all the flavors. I'm going to knead up my tortilla dough because it'll be perfect. But aren't they just gorgeous? They just pop over lovely. They're going to be so delicious. It's like your own little personal chicken pot pie with the cheddar bay biscuits on the top. It's just so delicious. This is like a favorite. And then, of course, you always have the extra biscuits, which are gone in no time. Okay. Our butter should be just about mixed. Now, I do use less butter than they recommend. Woo! There's a little pop there. Must have been a little water bubble in there. No biggie. Okay, so we're going to use 2 packets. So I only used 1/4 a cup. It would have wanted me to use 1/2 cup of butter, which is a lot of butter. And you don't need to, so no need to waste it. Especially with the price of butter nowadays. That's something I use a lot of butter in my baking because I prefer it over oil. We're going to add these 2 packets in, and then I'm going to use my basting brush to mix it up. But it's now like a pound of butter is $5, $6, sometimes $7, depending on what store you go to. Very rarely can I find it under $5 a pound. So I'm like, let's not waste it if we don't need to. So I got it mixed up. Once all of those herbs are dissolved into that butter, all you're going to do is you're going to just brush it over the top of your biscuit layer. And this is going to give you that delicious herby taste to it. You know, that you get that Red Lobster, you know, the addictive part of these biscuits. So, and then plus, you know, I add extra cheese in there. So they're just cheddary goodness. And the crunchy biscuit layers really just pair wonderful with the chicken pot pie filling in there. So it is going to be delicious. As you can see how I'm right here, I've just used only half of my butter. Now I will go back over and give a second little smattering of it just to get that really good herby flavor on it. But this is going to be delicious. Okay, you see we're almost done. Do you see how if we had used twice as much butter, it would have just been crazy? Beautiful. So again, these are our chicken pot pies with a cheddar bay biscuit fill on the top. And now we're brushing it with our herby butter for just that nice little butter crunch on them. Okay, guys. Well, we are done. I'll show you guys how we'll serve it up. So we'll have everybody gets their own individual pot pie. I'm pretty sure they're still hot. So I'm going to put it right there. And then, of course, in case you didn't have enough biscuit, we'll have an extra biscuit on the side. And I always like to pair it with fresh fruit because it just kind of cuts through the nice richness of our chicken pot pie. So we'll have our cantaloupe with our biscuits and our chicken pot pie biscuit layer. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what I'm making, hopefully teach you guys something along the way. We do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so you should be able to if you want to recreate these recipes at home, you can just watch along with me, and hopefully it will turn out great for you guys as well. We do also offer a membership that has just access to some more recipe cards, some exclusive content, probably do our cocoa, like our chocolate sourdough starter on there. And then just also more about our family. We're about to upload some gardening videos of our kids and all that jazz. But again, thank you guys so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like,